All right, during the break, Trevor asked me what's with the green bars here, and they also were yellow for a while. Visual clue that your code hasn't been saved. This one has been saved because it's all green. If there's yellow stuff there, it means you've got some code that hasn't been saved. I had to check and got help from other people because I didn't know. It's not something that's ever caught my attention. Whenever you run, they turn green. If you close Visual Studio and you haven't saved anything, it'll go, hey, you forgot to save something. And so you save it. So I'm not so sure I need a visual clue. That's why I don't know what those mean. All right, back to my notes. First of all, we need to talk about tickets for Tuesday. This one was earlier under picture box. It's in my notes. But so you're going to do the tickets. You're going to do the checkpoints on 104. And let me pause the recording, and I'm going to write those on the board. So that's part of the ticket that's due next class period. And we've talked about buttons already, and the code window we've talked about, and the code features we've talked about. And we just did this. When you double click on something, don't follow. I hope I get lucky here. If I double click on the flag, the book refers to this as a code template. Okay. A code template, because it already gave you this stuff that you need and this stuff that you need, and it gave this a nice name. This is bad though. I didn't name my flag. If I'm going to write code for my flag, I need to give it a name. So in this case, I probably want to delete that. But I'm going to try undoing it. Because I just did a save all before this, so I'm going to try to Control Z. Are you sure? It could result in a loss of work. Yeah, okay, fingers crossed. It's gone. Because I undid, so's the designer line, it's gone. But now here's the scary part. Nothing's gone in my form, so that's good. When you do that, if you do the undo right away, you think that's what they teach you in Microsoft Word, right? If you make a mistake, undo right away. If you do that here, you're very likely to lose a whole lot more information. And that's why you get that ugly warning box. It's one reason to maybe click Save All every so often, so that if you do accidentally click some code or create some code, you can fix it. I mentioned in the last class, maybe it was the last recording, that we can enable and disable this flag, right? Well, let's write code for it. Wait a minute. If we're going to write code for it, we just saw, at least on mine, it doesn't have a name. So first, select your flag, and let's give it a name. Pick flag. Enter. Then double-click it. My advice to you, whenever you create one of these event handlers, is immediately describe what you think it's going to do. So I'm going right above it here. I'm going to add the blank line from my anal instructor /star. This method enables and disables the flag animation. Couldn't I just say enables and disables flag? No, because I already have another standard. Remember months ago when we talked about my syllabus, I mentioned to you that part of the core abilities in this class is for you to practice your communication skills. One of the ways you're going to practice communication skills for me is to give me complete, grammatically correct, spelled correct method descriptions for every single method. So they need to be complete sentences. If they're accurate, that's great. If they're not complete sentences, you're not meeting my standard. My standard. This is not real world, that they have to be complete sentences. Though grammatically correct probably isn't bad, and spelled right's probably a good idea, even if you're putting sentence fragments up there.
Does it need a period?
Does it need a period? Guess not. I didn't put one there. Yes. Should there be commas in the right? Boy, that would be lovely. I'm glad if you can give me a complete sentence that's grammatically correct and spelled right. If it doesn't have a sentence at the end or a period at the end, I'll probably let it go. And that's what I'm looking for. So do that first. That's my advice. I have a lot of students who just loved code. And so they code and they make a new procedure and they code it and make a new procedure. And then they get to the end and they do my evaluation sheet and says, every method has a description. And that's when I start getting cussed at because I'm not in the room, hopefully. Stupid Volkers, stupid standards got it. And then they go back and it takes 15 minutes to do these and they're doing nothing but writing English and they hate it. Take my advice. Do it right away. And you got one sentence at a time, breaks up the monotony, and it's painful to do after the fact, absolutely. It's less painful to do immediately. That's my advice. Here's the code. You're just copying code right now. Some of this stuff I'll explain to you later. For right now, you're just copying code. I want to change, and when you're thinking in computer programming, you first put what is it you want to change, my pick flag enabled status. And then an equal sign. What do you want to change it to? Enabled. What type of property is it? What was that word he said in class? Boolean. Good. Boolean property. It's a true-false property. So what do you think I'm going to type here? True or false, or one of them. Initially, what is it? It's true. So I'm going to change it to false. Not flats, false. Semicolon. Notice when I double-click the picture, I got a click event. Do you get click events for everything? Well, not everything, but a lot of things. When the user clicks on a picture, respond. When the user clicks on a button, respond. Execute this code. The clicking is called an event. Users can double-click. Users can right-click. They can do all kinds of things. They can drag. We saw that. We could change this and say it's a secret. Has to be for double-click. Just by changing this, no, it's not that simple. You want to do it? What the heck? Let's do it. Let's go back to design mode. Select the flag. Don't double-click it. Select it. Go to the lightning bolt. Remember, the lightning bolt has a list of all the events that this thing can respond to. Here's the double-click event. Double-click it to create it. Now I have pick flagged up. I couldn't just change that? No, afraid not, because there's the designer view and we'll have to go change that too. Now I'm going to take this line of code. I click to the left of the number and I'm going to drag it down here. And I'm going to take my comment and I'm going to drag it down here. You could, in the interest of time, just leave this there. What does it do? Nothing. When the user clicks, this code executes, does nothing, and gives control back to the form. I'm going to ask that you delete empty code procedures. If they don't do anything, they shouldn't be here. It's going to confuse somebody. So this one's empty, so I'm going to delete it, and what's going to happen? I'm going to have a leftover, I'm going to have an error. It's all right. We'll practice fixing that. Delete this, backspace key. Run. It says, no, I won't. Double-click the error. It will take you to designer view again. You're going to do, I still do this often. You're going to do it often because you're going to create these things and there's the one with the red line. Click it, delete it. Notice I'm clicking to the left of the numbers. That selects the entire line, saves you a little time. Do the same thing in Microsoft Word, by the way. Once that's done, close the designer and run. And now we said double click. So clicking on the flag does nothing. But if I double click it, it stops. And if I double click it, it stops it again. When does it start? Sorry, you didn't write code for that. I want to. Okay, here we go. Double click the word false. I'm going to replace it. Just like Microsoft Word, double click a word, it selects it. It's a lot like a word processor. You can erase that if you wish, or you can just start typing something new like an exclamation mark. Shift 1. Kind of hard to see up there. That's an exclamation mark. Pick flag. no spaces, dot, enabled. Notice it's already selected, so I just press tab and it fills it in for me. What the heck does that mean? The exclamation mark in most of the curly bracket languages means not. So what this says, I wish I could cover it up somehow. Okay. Remember, the stuff on the right-hand side of the equal sign is evaluated. Take whatever enabled is. It's either true or false, right? Not it. In other words, reverse it and save it in here. So when it's true, it makes it false. When it's false, it makes it true. It's called a toggle. Let's put a comment here. That's a good idea. Toggle the status. Toggle. Turns it on, turns it off. Same command. How would you ever figure that out? Paid big money, I taught you. Where are your glasses, John? Which way you want to know?
What's right in front of flag here?
That one, that's exclamation mark. Now if we run it, right now enabled is true, right? Not true is false. So this line of code says this is true. Not true is false. Put false in there, and now it's no longer enabled. If I double click it again, this is false. Not false is true. Put true in there, and it starts to back up again. Please. Oh, really? What? Is yours working?
No.
Stop it. Wow. I want to try. I wonder if it's the enabled and it's a GIF file. Once you disable it, it doesn't want to come back to life again. That's weird. Let's try something else. Maybe something else has changed on me here. The next line down. We're just almost playing now. I did not expect that this, honestly. I will often do things wrong in class on purpose. Teachable moment. Right? That one, I did not expect. But I'm also making stuff up as I go here. I should be following my notes a little closer. Let's do the coffee cup. Pick coffee cup dot visible. Remember, that's also Boolean. Visible equals not pick coffee cup dot visible. Same exclamation mark, Jen. But this time, instead of enabled, I'm using visible. So now what's going to happen is this is called an Easter egg in many programs. It's a secret little feature that might not be well documented. If you double click the flag, I'll hide the coffee cup on it. Ooh. If you double click it again, it should come back. I'm guessing this one's going to work and the one above it doesn't. If it doesn't work, I'm in big trouble. Cool. Flag stop. Double click. Oh, I know why. If the flag is disabled, it doesn't respond to events. I forgot that. Figured it out. I'm surprised I didn't have to go to the bathroom to figure that out. That's when things usually occur to me. Okay. The reason the flag doesn't work is because we disabled it. And once it's disabled, you can't use a disabled object to execute. If I disable this button, it doesn't execute. Right, so that's why this is not turning the stuff back on again. Okay, so this part of the statement here, this is kind of redundant. It does not toggle. It can't because it's disabled. Here we go again. Ready? Going to the design view. I'm going to double click the mid-state label. Oh, it doesn't have a name. I'm going to be brave and undo. Whew. Give it a name. Go back. So undo. Go to that label and call it label MSTC. Give it a name. I'm still in event mode here. Notice my lightning bolt. Where's my properties? Got to click here. This window down here tells me I got errors. Why is it not going away? I'm going to close it. Change the name to LBL MSTC. Notice only the M is capitalized. That's how you do abbreviations. Everybody got its name? Now double click it. Take both of these lines of code. Watch up there and then you can do it. I'm going to point to the left of line 35 on mine. Yours might be a different line number. That's cool. I'm going to drag it down, get all 3 lines, and take all 3 lines down here. I'm going to take my description and move it down there and modify it. This method disables the flag animation and toggles the coffee cup visibility. So now it does 2 things, right? I'm going to delete this one. It's empty. I could go into the designer view and try to find it. It's much easier just to run, wait for the error message to show up and double click it. There it is. Click next to the line, delete it. Close the designer. It's not required, but I strongly recommend it. Get it out of the way. Run. Now we put that code on the label. Click the label. Flag stop. Coffee cup goes away. Nothing's changed with the label. It's still enabled. So I click it again, and sure enough, everything comes back. Click it again. Click it again. I think my granddaughter will do this for 15 minutes. So I got, by winging it here, I got myself into a bit of a problem. I disabled the flag to make it stop waving, but by disabling it, I also stopped it from responding to events. So when the user clicked on it, nothing happened. That's why it didn't re-enable, because it was disabled and it doesn't even respond to the events. So I had to pick a different object for my Easter egg here to make things happen. The key here is the code for toggling. Why is this so bizarre here? Let's park it. Unpin it. There we go. I must have moved mine somehow. This is called toggling. Toggling is used on Boolean properties. The same command turns it on that turns it off. And the key is simply to duplicate the enabled or the visible on both sides of the equal sign, add an exclamation mark. I will never expect you to remember this stuff in your brain, but I will expect you to potentially find it when I give you a test at the end of the semester. It might say, write some code to toggle the visibility of this flag. Then you'll go, I've done that. I don't remember how I did it, but I've done that. Where was it? Oh, and it might be my sample programs. Don't throw these things away. My books, my tests are open book, open notes, open sample code. The only thing I ask you not to do is try to code the questions on the test in Visual Studio, because a couple of years ago I had somebody work on a test for 17 hours because they couldn't get the errors to go away. If they had turned it in the way it was, they would have lost a half a point. And worth 17 hours. That's advanced warning on the test in December. Let me go back to my notes. We did the close, talked about a code template. All C# statements or commands end in a semicolon, but the definition of a command is kind of funny. Takes a little getting used to. We'll talk about it throughout the semester. A command, a line of code, let's put it that way, in Visual Studio, a line of code either ends in a semicolon or an open curly bracket. No exceptions to that, except for comments. Comments are ignored, they don't count. The only person who cares about your comments is me. Make sure you spell right inside there. Switching views, we did that, right? Switch between the tabs here, and if you don't have it, click this, or you can double click a button. If you already have an event code for it, that's safe. If you don't have an event code, my advice is use the angle brackets to start with. but buttons are good. Double clicking buttons is pretty safe because you're definitely going to be writing code for it. Maybe not right now. That's okay. If it creates an event handler, leave it empty. Before the program is done, you'll be filling it in anyways. So maybe that's a good little piece of advice. Double click a button to switch to code view. Any button. It won't hurt. You can also, I think I showed you this on one of the first days in Visual Studio, you can drag these things around. And now it's pretty easy to switch back and forth, except that window is now hidden. I think it's hiding here. You have dual monitors. Maybe you can get at it. Well, I can't get to that one. So I'm just going to close it. Hopefully when I go back to code view, it'll put it where it belongs. Yep. If it was in a second window, you could drag it back. I just couldn't get at it. It was hiding somewhere. So that's another way that you could switch between them. That's not quite as useful. We've been doing this, right? Deleting excess event modules. If you have an event module in your code that's empty, I require that you delete it. Highlight everything from the beginning, the private void, to the end curly bracket, delete it. Run your code. The designer will show an error, double click the error, delete the line in the designer. Close the designer, and you fixed it. If you're careful, you might never create empty event modules. But even I'm not that careful. What do I mean by careful? Only double click on buttons. You'll never create an extra one. Syntax. Let's talk about that term. Syntax, or just language, or language syntax, are the rules of the language. You've already seen some of them. Statement ends in a semicolon or curly brackets. What if I come down here and misspell visible? I'm breaking the rules of the language. The rules of the language says if you want to change the visible property, you type visible right. And you have to capitalize it. If you manually go in, take the little V out, it won't work. C# is a case-sensitive language. Little v visible and capital V visible are two different things. Most languages today are case-sensitive. Visual Basic is an exception. But most languages are case-sensitive, so your capitalization is very important. And a lot of all the stuff we've been using is built into the language, right? Like color, like clothes. You have to follow the rules. The rules are consistent. Properties are capitalized. Methods like close are capitalized. And you'll learn these as we go. But capitalization is important. If I accidentally come in here, take out the capital C, put in a little one. Never heard of it. Stupid program. I agree. I think the case sensitivity is a little annoying. And they didn't take it away in Swift either. Because why would I have one variable called pick coffee cup that's lowercase and another one that's uppercase? That'd be more confusing than anything. It's annoying, but it's a fact of life. We've got to deal with it. These are case-sensitive languages. That's part of the language syntax, the rules of the language. In Visual Studio, if you break the rules of the language, you get red squiggles, and your program will not run. You have to figure out what's wrong. Often, you can just hover and find out what's wrong. The name Pick Coffee Cup does not exist in the current context. Can't they just say, never heard of it? That's what they said, right? Sort of. That means it might exist, but it doesn't exist in this event handler. I've never heard of it. That's you check the capitalization, check your typing, check your spelling, make sure this is our name, right? We called it Pick Coffee Cup. Maybe you mistyped it when you created it and created it with a lowercase c. That's not good. Boker's going to ding you for that. Whatever it is, figure it out, fix it. If you can't, stare at it a little while. If you know the person next to you real well, have them look at it for a second. If that doesn't work, Ask me. If you're having trouble at home, remember to send me your project. I'm going to minimize it. You don't minimize it at home. Close it. You right-click the folder. Here we are, Unit 2. Right-click, and you'll have a compress option here, or add to zip, or something like that. Zip it, attach it to an email, send it to me. Some of you will take screenshots. Here's the error I get. Well, you give me this little piece, that doesn't always give me the answer. You can try that, but I might send you a message saying, I'm sorry, I can't tell from that. Send me the entire project. I'll usually say the entire program. That means go to the outside folder, zip it, send it. You do anything else, I'll say that wasn't right, try it again. Zip project, the solution folder, and send it to me via email. Syntax errors. If you misspell stuff, there's back color, we did that. If you pick a color that's not on the list, you can't do that. And you're stuck. Okay, more to your checkpoints. I'll go add those to the board here in just a second. So those are checkpoints. You won't be able to run the application if you do not have syntax error, your program does not work. Now you have a different kind of error. There are different kinds of errors that you can generate as a generate as a programmer. Syntax errors are the relatively easy ones because C# will point to that and say, I don't understand, fix it. Relatively simple, but you might look at it and go, what? Everything's cool, what's the matter? Occasionally you have to give it a little time. If you think everything's cool, go to the next line. In Visual Studio, in most cases, if the error has been corrected, we'll take the red squiggles off within a half a second or so. Sometimes it leaves them there. If I change this to a little c, it figures it out pretty quick. And sometimes, this might be new in 13 because it's correcting things pretty quickly here. I haven't even left the line yet. In older versions of Visual Studio, you had to leave the line and say, okay, I'm done, now look at it again. Not anymore. Looks at it right away. In a way that's annoying because as you're halfway through the line, you get red squiggles, and you go, oh God, red squiggles. That's an error. You're not done yet. Keep going. Those are easy. If there's no red squiggles, you run your program and you click on the flag when it's not waving anymore and it doesn't work. That's a logic error. There's something wrong in the way you're thinking, or your instructor's thinking in that case. There's something wrong with your logic. Sometimes programs give you the wrong answer. What was my mileage on this trip? If you have the wrong equation in there, it might give you the wrong answer. And you got 200 miles per gallon. Well, hopefully you're smart enough to know, no, that's not right. 2 miles, no, that's not right either. But sometimes it's more subtle. It takes testing. You should know what to expect. But you saw a logic error. I didn't do it on purpose. It would have been should write that in there. That was a logic error. I forgot that when I disable an object, I can't click on it anymore until I re-enable it. So I need to have some other object re-enable it. That wasn't supposed to be that complicated, but it turned out that way. Testing and running a program, we know how to do that. Click the Start button. There's a shortcut key at the F5. Okay, you like that? Go for it. My brain goes to the green arrow and goes. I think the main reason I click on the green arrow, because I know at this point I'm done typing. So I grab the mouse, click on the arrow, and when my program runs, what am I going to do? Use my mouse to manipulate it, probably. So I don't use F5, but F5 works. Because we saw what happens, you get red squiggly lines, nothing happens, you get an error message down at the bottom that you have to fix. To stop, we can click the X, we know that. Or we can click, don't forget, the stop button on the Visual Studio toolbar. This usually happens because I go, oh darn, I forgot something, I come fix it, it's still running. You can stop it here, or you can minimize and go find it. And you can right click it down here and say, go back. Well, actually, a right click should kill it. Let's try that again. There it is, close it. Good enough. So that's 3 different ways, doesn't matter. The stop button is where I usually go if this is already on top. We talked about comments, two kinds, right? Inline comments and block comments. I'm just checking to see what else we got coming up here besides more tickets. Ignore those, I'm not there yet. Whoa, we're almost done. We know about the different kinds, and I've already shown you some of the documentation that I expect for methods. This is the old way. It's very cluttering, messes up your code. You might see it in somebody else's code. I think the author uses it later in the book. Please don't do that. What I'd like you to use is the technique that I showed you where you use block comments and you put the / on one line and start your comment. Notice when I collapse this, I still get some of the description. Not all of it, but some of it. Okay? And if I want, I can touch it and see some more. If you put them on separate lines, that works. So I start with a /, type my comment. It could be 2, 3 lines long. Don't get carried away here, by the way. A method description in my real world is maybe 2 lines, 3 lines long. 2, 3 sentences at most. Often you can get away with 1. What does it do? Not how. If I as a programmer want to know how it does it, I'll go look at the code. But if I'm looking for a method that does something and I can't tell by its name, then maybe I can figure it out. Some of these are just redundant. See, why am I documenting this? Because it's my standard. It's hard for me to say document the ones that you think need it. Because you and I will disagree on that. Then you'll be mad at me, and I don't want you mad at me. So the rule is even better, do them all. That way we don't have to worry about it. So this is the way every single one of these event procedures that you create, you must provide a description above, and you must provide 1 blank line in between. Why would you put 3 there? 1's plenty. Now it's collapsed and easy to read. There's more documentation that I require of you, though. Every project needs its own documentation. Volcker standard. C# obviously could care less, right? Because it's creating programs for us. It doesn't care. I do. The maintenance programmer cares. Who owns this? Who created this? It was created 3 years ago by Darren. Geez, Darren's a supervisor. I wonder if he remembers this stuff. But at least I know who to go ask. Who created this? Ooh, I did. I don't remember. That happens too. So this is part of my standard. Where do we put this? Use the following program documentation within this course. You're going to put this in every single program. Required in the evaluation sheet. This can cost you up to 1 point or 2 or 3. 3 points for not having good documentation on a 20-point program. Ouch. That's another time you're cussing at Volcker, right? Stupid documentation program's perfect. No, it's not. It's not maintainable. So where does this go? Variables code, add the application documentation. I thought I'd tell it where to put it. Application describes the name, program, enter the comments above using system. Whoa, where's that? At the top. Okay. I can put comments up here? You bet. What does it look like? I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. Maybe I can see both at the same time. This needs to be in your comments. There's lots of ways to do it. Make it look halfway professional. You might do this, /. Maybe on the next line, say, what did I want? Program name or project name? Program name, project name, it's up to you. You have some flexibility. And this is called sample, in my case, 2.cs. That's the project's name. If you leave the .cs out, I'll probably be comfortable. You now have it in a recording, so if I mark you off for that, you can say, but at 34:35 of hour 2 or hour 7 of lecture 2, you said, you probably I said probably. Caught me on a bad day. No, I won't take your points off. Next line, what do we need? Programmer name, that would be you. I can always tell when you copy my programs because I get credit for them. I'm anal, so I'm gonna line up my colons. Boy, that's anal. Yep, that's me. Looks better, looks more professional. This one's tricky, due date. How do you know when the due date is? Please answer. I will tell you, and then after that you'll forget, so then how do you know?
Blackboard.
Thank you, Blackboard. We will determine due dates in here in class, and I will post them in Blackboard. That's where you'll find them. You'll email me on the weekend and say, what's the due date for this? And if I happen to know, I will answer you. But if I don't know, I will say it's in Blackboard. You look it up. That'll save me having to look it up. Because if I forget, that's where I have to go. Might as well you go there. For this one, let's just put today's date in there. If you're going to put, how do you want this? 9/4, September 4, something normal. Here's one, 2014-09-04. That's called ISO format, International Standard Date Format, because everybody can understand that. Those darn Germans like to put the day of the month first, and then the month, and then the year. When they show that to one of us, we go, what 13th month? Then we go, oh, that's right, your German is flipped around. And this is an international standard format where it's year, month, day. That's safe. If you want to write it out, because it feels better, do it. Just spell September right. After the due date comes the purpose of this program. The purpose of your programs in your assignments are not to learn C#. They are not to demonstrate buttons. That program has a purpose. You can probably find it in the program description, in the assignment description. This one, this has to be complete sentences. This program demonstrates basic C# concepts. That's not what your program does. This program has no purpose except to teach, the one I'm writing right now, has no purpose except to teach you things in C#. The ones you're writing for assignments, they have purposes. What do? 1, 2 sentences. Again, I don't want a lot of detail here. We're not done yet. Next line. I'm going to start you creating a change log. I learned about this 20 years ago, been using it ever since. Every time I make a change to a program, I document it in my change log. Brief description of the change I made. Because if I get a phone call a month later, I can go, well, what's the last thing I did? Maybe this is a new error that's caused by what I just did. What's the last thing I did to this program? And I can go look. It's very important. So you're going to create one. First thing I would like you to put in there is the date. So once again, I would again recommend ISO date. And then a description. The first time you submit your program, you say initial submittal. I love those words because half of you can't type them. And I look at them and go, that doesn't look right. Ah, it's not right. Half point. Yay, no candy bar. Then, if you get an update, good thing, you document your changes. What I recommend is that you put them in reverse order. So I'm pretending now, it's a couple days, and I'm going to, maybe I did it today, okay? But if it was tomorrow, fixed, these don't have to be complete sentences, but they should be spelled correctly, fixed the disabled flag problem. If you fix 3 or 4 things, list them all on the same date, just start new lines, whatever. I like listing them in reverse order because I'm not terribly interested in the changes I made 5 years ago. They're probably not affecting me anymore. I still like to document and show my users, look what I did for you. I've seen some programmers who pull them out, but many shops, programming shops say, nope, you leave all those in there. Because you never know, maybe it was what you did back in 1997 that causes this problem. And we just never discovered it until now. So you are required for all of your programs to have a change log. So you could copy this and just change the names, right? Just be sure to change the names and the descriptions and the dates. Or just duplicate it like you just did here in class. Now I have a problem. Why is all this stuff green? I never ended my comment. So after the last change log thing in here, back up to the star and put a slash on it to end that. Now Now everything's back to normal. Another common mistake is not to save this at this point. If you don't run, those comments have not been saved. You'll be warned on the way out. But if you're in a hurry because the football game's about to start, you might say, nah, don't save. Oh, damn, there's my comments. Save all is always safe. We got to that checkpoint, add it.